Well, good afternoon, folks. It is our remembrance of 9/11. I'm going to share this a little bit. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okie doke. Hey, Steve. Good to see everyone. All right, so I'm going to start out with my memory of 9/11. And a little bit of time with the Ducks, of course. So, my memory of 9/11, I was in Iceland, Keflavik, Iceland, on an Air Force base, listening to the radio. And on that radio broadcast, on Armed Forces Network, they were doing the morning show. And during that morning show, they were telling jokes and talking about things going on in the world on that day in 2001. Doing jokes, cracking jokes, you know it. Hey, Boulder. So on that day, with the morning jokes on the radio show, they start talking about, oh, hey, just to pause on our jokes for a minute, an aircraft just hit one of the Twin Towers. So, with that morning radio show, you're thinking, oh, well, this must be another one of their, skits or what have you. Or somebody called into the radio station. And yet, in the other room, they're watching the national news back in the States, and they're watching an aircraft hit the first tower. On the replay, they're showing video. Okay, that's kind of weird. And then the time passed, as expected, and the second plane hit the second tower. And everybody really, it really got their attention. So there we are in Iceland, on an Air Force base. And they immediately tell everyone, as soon as the towers fell, you're out of work, you're going back to the rooms for the day. And as we're closing up shop that morning, the Air Force start walking through the building with their bomb sniffing dogs that they had immediately dispatched to our hangar. Yet, across that very runway, after all our planes had landed, all the airlines from Iceland were still flying, still taking off, still landing, as if nothing had ever happened. So here we are, 17 years later. Hey, Chris. 17 years later, looking back, I still don't think the entire story has been told about 9/11. And interesting to me is that at the military academies, the class that just classed up is the last ones prior to 9/11. Anybody after that has been born since 9/11 that will be becoming adults. They will never know what that looked like, what our memories are, what each of our recollections are of 9/11. And so it's up to us to continue to remind them that was a horrid day. That was a terrible day. That was a day our country got turned upside down, and it's never been the same since. That was our day of infamy, just like World War II. That was our December 7th. Hey, Sergeant Peterson, for us, that's our fateful day that we'll never forget. I mean, the only thing this new generation has is the Boston bombings. That's the closest thing they have to something tragic happening in recent times. It's incredible that we're the ones, hey, the best, welcome. That we're the ones that need to pass down that memory of what that was like. Yeah, Chris, I totally get it. That's how it went down. We were sharing memories as it happened. I mean, it was pre-cell phone. You couldn't broadcast like this. You couldn't share you couldn't tweet. None of that existed. And yet if something happens now, we know instantaneously, worldwide, if something crazy happens. But yet, we need to remind those folks that are now turning into adults that the country is not the same. Yeah, it is, Josh. It's hard to imagine that they'll learn about a memory that, I mean, my dad was barely 2 when December 7th happened. He has no memory of December 7th, 1941. He has no memory of that. It was what his family passed on to him. My kids, my daughter's 10, my son is 7. They have no concept of what the world was like before they were born. So it's up to me to share what that was like. And Boulder, you're right. Like right now, in order for us to share the activities, yeah, they know the Vegas shooting. That's it. Or the vehicles that keep running over folks in some of these major cities. Now they're going to be aware of what's happening in Chicago with all the shootings. They're going to know about in South Africa that 57 lives a day, 57 people a day, which I think is a very conservative estimate of people dying in South Africa. It's horrifying where our world is now. And yet our children have no concept of that. Our friends have virtually no concept of that. They don't understand what the world looks like. Unless they're catching the news, and most of us have cut the cord as far as cable and satellite TV and all that. I mean, a lot of folks are using their Netflix and their Hulu and everything else to get their entertainment, and YouTube and all that. They're not getting real news. And even then, the news that they are getting, as we all know, is based off the narrative that's being pushed out. It's all dependent on who's telling the story and where it's coming from. I mean, we barely know what's going on when it comes to those Antifa rallies. Unless somebody's live broadcasting, you don't know. You have no idea what's actually happening at those events. Yeah, Boulder, you've been pushing Styx and Sargon and Owen and all those, and even Stefan Molyneux. Those guys are the only ones we got that, hey, they're willing to get banned. They're willing to put themselves out there to, it's their livelihood. Yeah, exactly. You got to watch the live broadcasts or you don't get the flavor of what's really happening. And then you got to hope that you know, somebody isn't editing after, because these days, how do we know? How do we know something's a real live broadcast or if it's not a rebroadcast? Because some people have been alluding to, well, what if it's a simulation type scenario? What's a good point? That's a really good point. If it weren't for being able to see a clock or a timestamp or actual live interaction like we're doing, you're never going to know whether something was pre-staged or not. That's what's the scary thing about our media now is it going to be live? Is it going to actually be happening? Yeah, live, no edit. Exactly, Boulder. That's what you want to be able to prove. I mean, that's what's awesome about Owen streams is, hey, if he makes a mistake, he says something wrong, he does something stupid, he leaves it in there. Because guess what? That's live as it happened. So that's what we need. We need authenticity in our broadcasts. And I know Steve, you're of the same mindset. Hey, he's streaming in his vehicle. And Boulder, you're streaming while you're out on a job. I mean, we believe in the authenticity of our broadcasts. That we believe in the, hey, this is real life. I'm not gonna paint things in a particular light. I mean, this is our 9/11, 17 years later. So the real question is, yeah, exactly, Josh. When a chicken's walking through my stream unexpectedly, you know that it's real. You know that I didn't plan that. This is real life. This is actually as it happens. And the funny thing is, you can look at my plants. You can look at my plants out here. Hey, Brooke. Like, this is for real. This is actually, I mean, you guys watching duck. That's there's nothing scripted about the duck. I did want to talk about my blueberry plants. So I've had these for a little while. They're starting to change. So I spoke to the lady at the local nursery, and she suggested that I go one or two sizes up on the pots and cut them back. So she's suggesting that I cut them back trim them back quite a ways so that they can do more with the roots during the winter and springtime, so that I'll actually have fruit next summer when I'm actually interested in fruit. Because this poor little blueberry plant, which is known as a patriot, didn't do so well because it didn't have any friends. So now I've added 2 additional friends to the garden. Oh, the best. Blueberries, from what a friend of mine, former coworker, said, that blueberries do absolutely awesome in my region. All right, we're going to check on Mama Duck. There's Mama Duck. There's Duck right there. There's Mama Duck and her eggs. And she's not happy with us stopping by, but look at all those eggs. And see, she's being a good mom. She's covering up her eggs. So that's what ducks do. Good job, Noelle. You're a good mom. You're a good mom. There's Duck. He's not terribly happy. Now let's go check on the chickens. We'll do a quick check on the chickens. Sorry, my yard is not the most pristine place in the world, but it's a yard. Yeah, with this 13-inch corkscrew. Josh, that's funny, dude. That's hysterical. That is, hey, that's real life. That's how it rolls. That's what ducks do.
Hello.
So anyhow, you guys,
Hey.
I'm gonna need to wrap this up here shortly. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this stream. I know it's a little bit shorter than normal, but my kids go to Awana tonight. So that's our plans for the evening. All duck babies are a product of violent and near drowning. Well, it's not quite that dramatic, honestly. There is some of that going on, Chris, but it's not quite that dramatic. It's over within 30 seconds. So, all right, guys, maintain the Second Amendment. Stay prepared. Stay ready to respond, because you never know when our next 9/11 could happen, or your next natural disaster on the East Coast could happen. So make sure you have your bug out bag. Remember, I was talking about those, because there are many folks in the Virginia area that are having to bug out right now. So, all right, you guys, have a great day. We're coming up on election season. Make sure you're registered to vote. And you guys have a good night. And I'll talk at you later. Bye, guys.